have too much.
Now, seriously, are there any questions, or is there anything that you would like for us to address this morning?
Pastor,
Yes.
um, I wouldn't mind if you addressed the new year. Uh, there are a lot of high expectations. Maybe faith is put in the right place, and maybe not so much. Uh, what you see coming this year? Anything that we should focus on or not focus on, that sort of thing. What do you see with this year? I think this is as everybody kind of see not really knowing what that means, but can we talk about it just a minute?
Sure. I believe that this year, even though at the onset it does not appear to be any different than last year, is if you look at it visually or if you process what's happening intellectually, it appears to be the same or worse. However, it is my contention that when the energy changes when the authoritative energy changes, everything else changes. And just like the country was reflective of the leadership in terms of exposing the unrighteousness of this nation, my expectation this year is that we are going to begin to experience a huge push for righteousness. However, it's going to come um, under the auspices of equality. What I mean by that is this: we are going to see an upsurge of a push for the African to be placed to be freed from its bondage, and that freedom is not a physical bondage as much as it is the African to be free to free himself from the self-imposed bondage that is self-inflicted based upon embracing all of the antics of um, of evangelical Christianity or Christianity period, and the government as well. Example. Hello. Um,
Yeah, we're still here.
Okay, I'm sorry. The other phone rang, distracted me. Um, the the idea of governmental, what we've embraced governmentally, is that the government has somehow been our saving grace or our protector, when history has shown that has never been the case. And there we have been told and taught that the Emancipation Proclamation gave us equality or freed us from slavery, when in essence the Southern slave owners never lost control of the government, and to this day they still control it. If you look at things like the 1807 Insurrection Act, um, that was written for the express purpose of controlling any uprising by enslaved people. When you look at the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850, that was designed to force quote unquote free states to return runaway slaves to their slave masters. Now, keep in mind that both the 1807 Insurrection Act and the Fugitive Slave Act was passed by the U.S. Congress. So with those two examples, and I can cite others, what we actually see is that The Southern slave master has always controlled the U.S. government. And that mentality, that energy has always been there without regard to who sat in the seat of power. So I see this year bringing that to an end. This journey that we have been on is not going to end this year because it doesn't end. This journey we've been on um, is not going to is not going to what completely wash the laundry of the government clean. However, it is going to begin the process of manifestation. So, and when it comes to Christianity, I do believe that there's going to be a continuation of being outside of the buildings, so quote unquote, church, because uh, the idea of what Christianity represents does not reconcile with the scriptures. The Christianity that we have been taught, that everyone has been taught for that matter, cannot be reconciled with the scriptures. What I mean by that is this: the Christianity that we've been taught says that you cannot be a member unless you're baptized. It seeks tithe over mission. It rather have the tithe than the people. It seeks more control of the people than it does freeing people and helping people understand who they are in relationship to our Creator. The idea of pastoral manipulation is ending because of the way things are. Pastors almost lost their minds when the buildings had to close. And some of them did lose their mind because they brought their people back into the building. And there's no way to me that you can be a sane person. In my opinion, you cannot be a sane person and put the people you are charged with protecting in danger. That is no difference than putting the sheep in a pen full of wolves. And so I don't see a change in that in terms of going back into the buildings and things being as they were. I, I do believe that we are going to have more questioning of what's taking place within the confines of religion, within the confines of the church. Um, I believe that this whole this whole center of entertainment in the church is over with. And I say that because if you were to look at the songs that are rendered in the church and compare them to what the scripture actually says, it is very, very difficult to find a song that is in line with the scriptures. If you look at, let me back up a moment. And I say that because just because you put Jesus' name in something, it doesn't mean it lines up with the scripture. There is going to be a more um, concerted effort to understand what the scriptures are actually saying. And that's going to take place at the same time that a manifestation of righteousness is taking place. Last January, my statement to my class, I know I did that on Monday. I can't remember whether I did it to everyone else. I said it to everyone else, was that um, by the end of the year, you're going to see churches closed. And I said, no, by June you go begin to see churches closing. I had no clue as to what was going to happen to bring that to fruition. However, it happened, and I say that to say this: just like I saw that, this is what I am saying about the church now is what I felt then. I also believe that the conflation of politics with Christianity or with religion is going to falter. Example, you cannot tell me that you are not going to support someone because they believe in choice when the scriptures believe in choice. There's nothing in the scripture that forces you to do anything. You have to choose on your own. And abortion is no different. You can't force people to abide by what you think is right. You have to do that on your own. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So if you consider an abortion, then you have, in actuality, that's who you are. However, what's the point in bringing a child into the earth? And once the child gets into there, you don't care what happens to that child. The police can put his knee on that person's neck, and the police can walk up to a man's house and shoot him as he exits his garage. So no one is talking about that. All of these uppity, um, religious African church folks who are so arrogant as to believe that everyone who the police had shot deserved it, or even some of them deserved it. This is what I'm saying to you today, that there are church folks who bought into the idea of police shootings being justified simply because they dug up somebody's record, and they justified the shooting by that. However, if you look at what happened with the recent bombing in Tennessee, nobody drug up his record. Nobody looked for anything wrong about this man. His criminal record was only mentioned when they found out that he did not have one. They didn't talk about that. They didn't talk about anything about his aggression. They didn't say anything about um, his girlfriend and the bomb making thing. They talked their way out of that. How long do you think it would have taken place? How long would it taken them if there had been an African who someone told was building the bomb? They're not going to go to the door and knock and go back home, go back to the precinct. That kind of stuff. The incident that took place in the hotel with Karen. These kinds of things are going to change this year. That's what I'm saying. And there are those who are so religious until they believe that you got to shift politics. You got to sift it. You can't not talk about what's happening in this world and be preaching or teaching what's in the scriptures. As a matter of fact, if you're not dealing with what's in what's affecting humanity, if you're not dealing with that, if you're not able to see what the scriptures are saying about that, then you are not in line with the scriptures. We as a people have to change our attitude about what the scriptures are saying. We as a people have to stop allowing people to talk at us and call it preaching, as opposed to talking to us, talking with us, allowing space for questions so that we can get clarity on who we are and what our responsibilities are when we embrace who we are. Am I making sense?
Oh, yes.
Any questions?
Yes, sir. You are.
Any questions? So,
I guess,
go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, I guess my question comes from the fact of listening to folk and people I talk to anymore, like most of us, I suppose, I feel a tremendous responsibility for folk and what they believe and what they're saying, and everybody seems to have a great many people in a way that things are automatically better because of what is taking place, that this the election and the new coming in of the new year will affect everything. Everything will be wiped away. Everything will go back to normal. The pandemic will dry up and go away, and things will go back to the way they were, and even people going back into church buildings, and like something magical is going to happen now. And that just had me concerned, or has me concerned, because no one has said anything spiritually about what they see or what they believe, but everybody wants things to go back to the way they were. And I just thought that was worth mentioning, at least putting out there in the macro what's taking place, and even what our expectations may be from what we're seeing and expect in the new year. That's all.
Ron, Pastor,
go ahead.
This is Barbara. And that's why we can't think that what we've been doing is the end of it all. It's just the beginning of a new era, because someone has to continue to push for righteousness for humanity. And just because the administration has changed, just because you got more people of diversity and color in there, I think it's a good thing. But we have to continue to push that things don't get, there is no normal anymore. And so it's like that scripture that talks about where the demon was cast out of the person and 7 more came in. Just because they're Democrats don't mean they're not, don't have the potential to do the things that the previous administration did. They don't have the potential not to fulfill the promises that were made. It doesn't mean they don't have the potential not to be bought. So that's the thing that we have to keep focused on, that all of those things like righteousness on behalf of mankind, if it's on behalf of mankind, then it'll take care of inequality for various people. It'll take care of the wants and the needs of people rather than the desires of the rich. So those are the kinds of things we need to stay focused on to make sure that there's every opportunity for these kinds of things to manifest, and that anything and everything that continues to come against it will be null and void.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. This is George from Philly.
Morning,
I just
George.
wanted to, just respond to what was said thus far, and particularly, Barbara, in your last statement in reference to a new era. If I may, I just want to speak on the spiritual meaning, of numbers. And today is January the 2nd, 2021, which is the number 8. And when we talk about new beginnings or the new era, I think keeping those things in perspective of what has been resonating within us in the past year and where we are today, the number 2021, comes out to be 5, and the spiritual meaning of the number 5 is the number of manifestation. It's the number of the 5 elements. When we talk about cosmology, when we talk about the universe of air, earth, water, fire, ether, but it says within the 5 elements are all of the components necessary for creative manifestation. And so 5, is like a very free-spirited creative number, but the spiritual essence of the number is what you were referring to earlier, Pastor Richard, in terms of the 5 aligns to freedom. And to feel the freedom or to pursue that which fills your heart with purposeful joy and bliss. And so 5 is the doing number. It's the action number representing faith in action. but having a mindful connection to the synergy of the forces of nature. So I just wanted to just share, those particular numbers just as again, foundation for going into the new year. Yeah, I'm done. Thank you.
That is more of a direction of what to expect this year than anything else, a directive rather. Um, in relationship to the number 8, it's a new beginning. In relationship to 5, when we look at those numbers together, we get what, 11? Is it 12? What is it? 8 and 5 is 13, right? Hello?
Yes.
8
Yes.
and 5 is
Yes.
13.
Yes, yes.
And
Yes.
13 is the number that holds everything together. And 3 and 4 is creation, which also coincides with the number 5. So what am I saying? I'm saying based upon the foundation that George just laid, based upon the understandings that he shared with us, we are on course to see a new era. And it is impossible, not virtually, it is totally impossible for this world to turn to go back to what it was. There was nothing normal about what was going on prior to the pandemic. You get to a place mentality where suffering become a norm for you, but it does not mean it's normal. And normality based upon spirituality is when humanity is treated as humanity, meaning that I am my brother's keeper. I'm not my brother's killer. I am my brother's keeper. I am not the one to keep my brother from being able to eat or to have substandard housing. These things are coming to an end. And the government is not going to bring them to an end. It's going to be brought to an end by those who are seekers of truth, who are the burden bearers of this era. And the manifestation of what's happening spiritually will be shown by by the way the government is functioning, but it won't be the government that's bringing it into fruition. The idea of spirituality as the scriptures intended for it to be is being manifest now. The teachings uh, of truth, the journey based on truth, all these things is what's going to govern the earth. Barbara made a statement that this is simply the beginning, and she's exactly right. The question is this: are we prepared to stay the course? Are we strong enough to stand for truth without regard to whose presence we are in? Are we willing to be crucified daily in order for humanity to reap the benefits of spirituality? And when I speak of being crucified daily, I'm not talking about the Lent. I'm not talking about that. Lent is a game. I'm talking about being able to stand for what you know the truth to be without regard to the consequences of that. Are you strong enough to do that? So this idea of of Lent being a type of crucifixion is ridiculous. I remember being a little boy and going to a Baptist church and being taught that Lent was a Catholic idea that the Methodists picked up. and the Baptists it had nothing to do with that. However, there was an ecumenical meeting in the year 2000 at the turn of the century. And at that meeting were the representatives from religions, quote unquote, Christian religions around the world. And that meeting was hosted by the Pope. And in that meeting, these things were discussed. The things that governs Catholicism, things that governs the Methodist Church, Baptist, all the Protestant churches were there. And when they left, this is what we ended up with. We ended up with an embracing of Lent, an embracing of the Pope as being a leader of the church. We left with all of these things, which meant that took everything back to its origin. Christianity back to its origin. The origin of Christianity that has been taught by Europeans to us, and the Christianity that we perpetuate is the Christianity that was taught by Europeans. And it was organized for the express purpose of domination from its inception. History bears that out. Prior to that, the the um, the commandments of Scripture were being taught in the way that Jesus taught them. However, when Europeans saw an opportunity to use them, they chose the books that we call the Bible now and threw the other ones away that they could not manipulate or they found very difficult to manipulate. We have allowed a group of people who never have had our interests at heart, who a group of people who were the perpetuators of slavery, a group of people who organized a religion for the express purpose of controlling people of color. We have allowed them to dictate to us what the scriptures are saying, as opposed to looking for ourselves. And since we have been teaching the scriptures from the Aramaic and the Hebrew, what we have begun to see is what happened, or what was being taught rather, by Jesus, as opposed to what was being taught by the Catholic Church and fed to the Protestant churches. So right now, the the um, the power of the government has been destroyed. Now, don't get me wrong. When I say destroyed, it has not manifested yet, because, as was spoken earlier, just because uh, um, there is diversity in an administration, it does not mean that there is a diversity of thought, because the majority of the people who are currently being appointed to positions in that administration are the same people who have perpetuated this government and made sure that the status quo never changed. So, what I am saying is this: the ones who will change the government's direction are the ones who seek truth. In the macro will be the energy of truth, and that energy will have an influence on the direction of the government. And that's what we're going to see manifested. Know this beyond anything else: the pandemic came from our Creator. The election of Donald Trump came from our Creator. The Creator chose that for the purpose of exposing everything that is unrighteous, as I said earlier. And what we saw or have been shown and still seeing is the energy of slavery, the attitude, the dominant attitude of slavery. Democrats have always stood on the sideline and they talk a good game, but they do nothing at all. The Democrats have taken for granted the Africans vote. However, now we are beginning to see something that we've never seen before. We are seeing the African take control of his own destiny by saying, "We put you there, and you are going to do what you promised. We're gonna hold your feet to the fire." That's where the spiritual truth comes in. That strength to do that. I see that as being of what's happening in Georgia. When Georgia flipped, that told me that the attitude towards righteousness also flipped. When I see that 3 million plus already voted in early voting in Georgia, which is twice the number that did early voting during the presidential election. These are the kinds of things that helps me to see manifestation. Am I saying that that Warnock and excuse me, and but the other guy's name go win? I don't know that. It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter to me who physically occupies these places of power. What matters to me is that we have enough intestinal fortitude to, to persevere in the face of adversity, meaning that we have the strength, we have the commitment to make sure that truth is pursued so that the balance of energy can prevail in this universe. We are we, we are at a place where the Stargate was opened up earlier when the, um, the Christmas holidays. And matter of fact, the winter solstice, the 21st, is when the Stargate opened in the universe, and there's an influx of energy into the Earth realm for the purpose of bringing righteousness. And this is the thing that I want you to know. Number one, when it talks about the influx of energy through this opening, the Stargate, through the gates of righteousness, that's the spiritual understandings of what took place on the 21st. Scientists will tell you that there was an influx of energy into the earth, and that caused eruptions on the sun as well. So they know the energy exists, and they know that the energy was infused into the earth. However, they are looking at it purely from a scientific perspective, not spiritual. And what happened is the idea of science is actually not, science does not trump spirituality except in religion. When you look at the true nature of religion, you see that religion is what birthed science. It's simply a method to show what our Creator has brought into fruition, and a reminder of our creative powers. The idea of science was not was not separated from spirituality until the Catholics did it. And when they separated science from spirituality, they did it because they were ignorant of what spirituality is. And when they did that, they began to persecute anyone who was a scientist, and that even prevails up to today in certain segments of our society. More definitely within the attitude of evangelicals. This science over spirituality, because it is a known fact that without um, it's a known fact that the European Church talks about spirituality, but it doesn't practice it. The same thing is true in the Protestant churches of the African. we talk about it, but we don't practice it. We talk about things not happening. I can remember very clearly when the Creator said, "You will believe and not see." I didn't know what that meant. I didn't have apparitions in order to for me to see what was going on in the spiritual realm. I had to trust what I felt in my soul. And I remember being in Haiti, and this kid had a broken leg. We were called out of a meeting actually, and he had a compound fracture. And I'm thinking we need to get him to the hospital. And the man who Michelle, Pastor Michelle says, no, we hold hands and surround him and you pray. And when we did that, that compound fracture was no longer there. And the thing that hurt me the most is the only people who did not believe that, who I spoke with, were pastors. There is no way we can believe that we are supposed to be able to do what Jesus did because he said it, and for us not to believe something like that. And when they attacked me based upon their disbeliefs, my response was, you should have said that to me before I saw it. I know what I saw. And anyone who knows me, you're not going to push me off of what I believe just because of who you are or who you think you are. So what am I saying? We are going to begin to see, have opportunities like that all again. We're going to be able, we're going to see what we call miracles. And I'm saying to you, there are no miracles. The only miracle that exists is that it took us so long to come to a place of understanding who we are. That compound fracture healing was not a miracle. That should have been an expectation. And it was. When we were in Africa, we experienced the same things, a tumor in a kid, in a young girl who was so large it was protruding in her side. And after dealing with that, but through the laying of hand and prayer, she came back to us and it was gone. These are the kinds of things that I am saying we are going to see. These people had no connection to the Christianity that we are taught in this country, in this earth. They had a connection and a belief that you can do what Jesus did. They believed that. They believed that there is a spiritual power that is greater than any power on this earth. And you cannot tell me that you believe that there is a power greater than any power on this earth, and at the same time express doubts that that power can overshadow or can be in a powerful influence to alter the course of things in this earth. You can't tell me that. You can't tell me that you believe that there is a power greater than any power in this earth and act as if we have no hope. This whole idea of the pandemic thingy, this thing came as as a message from our Creator. Think about this. Why is it that the pandemic came uh, in the last year of this administration instead of the first or the second year? Can you imagine what would have happened if it had come in the first or the second year of this administration? How many people would be dead? How many people would be infected? How much more damage would have been done? Our Creator knows what it is doing, and the universe is guiding everything that's happening. This is what we must understand. And if we actually were to go back to the creation in Genesis 1 and 1 and follow it, up to the garden, we would see something different than what we think is there. And seeing that we will have a great standing of not only who we are, but what powers we have been endowed in order to bring change to this earth. And I say this without hesitation or reservation. If we don't bring change to this earth, it will never happen. All the preaching in the world, all the opening of the doors of the church, all of these things did not bring a change. If it brought a change, why is it that we are having the same experiences that we had during Reconstruction in 1877? If there was a change, the exact same thing: voter suppression, police killing Africans, without any repercussions. Judges making decisions that limit the rights of Africans. Africans being forced to live in substandard conditions. All of these things are the same things that were happening immediately following physical bondage. So the bondage was still there. We're experiencing it. So why are we experiencing it now? Because there are some people who have taken a stance and said, without regard to what it takes, we are going to stay on this journey of truth. If it is, if I am the only one left, I will not change the direction that the Creator has pointed me in. And I say I can only speak for me. However, I do believe that I'm speaking for the overwhelming majority of the people on this call, as well as others, when I say that, regardless of what happens, we will stay the course. And this is not about civil rights. This is not about voting rights. This is not about equality in employment, housing, or anything else. This is about righteousness, period. When righteousness prevails, all those other things takes care of themselves. When righteousness prevails, this is not about any political terms whatsoever. This is about not the law of the land. This is about the law of the universe. And when we engage with the law of the universe, it trumps the law of the land every single time. And the law of the land is the same law that's in the churches. And here we are in 2021, and we still have congregations in evangelical spaces where they have the relics of slavery, and proudly present them to I'm sorry, and proudly not expose, what is that word I'm looking for, display them for all to, huh? So what I'm saying is that we have to take another look at what we've been taught. We have to have a desire to be purged of what we've been taught. We have been taught unrighteousness. Now, let me say this, and I'm done unless someone had questions. Let me say this: when righteousness prevails, especially in your life, when you are seeking truth, the attitudes of people like Mitch McConnell doesn't faze you. You don't hate him because it is not the man, it's the energy that the Creator is showing us that needs to be repurposed. And the repurposing of that energy can never take place if it's not shown to us. We see what needs to be altered, to be changed, to be redeemed. And the redemption of that energy can only be done by those who believe what Jesus said. Not only will you do what I have done, but greater things than these you shall do. That's the only way. that we can repurpose that energy. Okay, any questions or comments? Ron Johnson, you started
I
there.
have another question. Yeah, I got another question, and I I want to talk about this vaccine for a minute, and I would appreciate your opinion, and in that I want to know your gut feeling as well. Okay. I also invite anybody else to give opinion. I want to hear from Barbara as well because of her professionalism and even what she feels from this. But people are very apprehensive about this thing. It is being marketed as the fix or to something that will bring about a cure and help this thing go away quickly. And hopefully that is the case. But I think we also have can influence the way people feel about this. People are reluctant based on different types of fears, and I'm hearing from Black and white people that talk about it. Are those fears justified? And what is it that we feel or should feel about this vaccine, and what can we do to make sure that it serves the purpose that it is intended to serve, if
Let me speak
anything?
mentions, and Barbara will address the medical end of it. The apprehensions are there with the African in particular because of what happened at the medical school in Charleston, MUSC, in terms of gynecological research during slavery. There was a doctor who is called the father of gynecology, and he experimented on enslaved females without using any anesthesia whatsoever. And from his barbaric attitude, nature, his barbaric um, culture, he ended up killing numerous women, not to mention the pain that they had to go through, and was invited to, I believe it's Mount Sinai, New York, a hospital in New York, to teach what he had learned from that. And there his research continued. That's one of the apprehensions. The other apprehension is because of what happened at Tuskegee with the syphilis experiments on African males. Now, as far as, well, let me say this, regardless of what it was in terms of research, it was done on enslaved people. That's those are our apprehensions. When it comes to the Caucasians' apprehensions, it is simply they don't trust the government. That's it. So, having said that, Barbara, would you address this?
I'd like to just add a little bit to that. There are a lot of people who don't take the flu shot either. The standard, whatever the prevailing strain is for the year. And even though most flu shots are made from dead virus, it's been shown to be fairly effective in terms of a larger exposure to the population taking it. At least this particular, I think it's Pfizer as well as Moderna. Pfizer as well as Moderna, are made from a non-live virus, and it's not even made from a virus. It's made from the RAH within the cell, and it should be even less less of an issue than taking the flu shot. If in fact the scientists were true to their unveiling this. In terms of African Americans, we're probably going to be at the bottom of taking this. I mean, everybody else is taking it first. Even people are getting in front of other people who should have it. So by the time it gets to majority of Black folk, we're gonna know what it does anyway. As for me, in terms of my understanding of how it was made, how they came to unveiling and unfolding this type of flu, I'm sorry, not flu, but vaccine to the virus, I do plan to take it. So, I mean, everybody has to make their own decision, but if it becomes available to me, I will take it.
Roy?
Yes, sir. I guess that yes, I think a lot of or it spoke volumes. Now, I won't say a lot of people. It spoke volumes to me when several months ago, when the vaccine was being developed and I think it was Pfizer. And I don't, correct me, somebody, if I'm wrong. Was being developed in Europe and Italy, as a matter of fact, because they were one of the regions of Europe that was hit the hardest. And the government of Italy said, if it's ready, send it to Africa first. Pick a place in Africa and go and test it before you give it to our people. And that spoke to me, and that's something that I didn't forget. And I thought, well, I hope this is not used as a way of manipulating the earth and controlling populations or doing whatever it is you think evilness can come up in your mind to do. And when I hear other people, like I was saying, non-Black people talk about their fears of it, it just kind of raised the brow to me as to what it is that we're facing here. What is this thing? So I appreciate Barbara's comment that if it is made available, she will take it. That gives me some comfort. And also something Pastor said earlier, the things we believe in and in the enlightenment that we depend on. And these weren't his words, they're mine. There's nothing stronger in the earth than that. So I appreciate that. And I thought the conversation was necessary. And I do feel better in having listened to you.
The other thing to remember as well is that nobody's looking out for Black folk in this pandemic, except Black folk.
And again, Bob, you cut out a little bit.
Nobody's looking out for Black folk in this pandemic, but Black folk.
Yeah.
And so,
yeah.
What happens if nothing is done? If nothing is done, or if there is no remedy, or if there is no vaccine, it's going to take millions and millions more deaths, millions and millions and millions more deaths before this pandemic seems to let up. And then with the variant strands that are coming out now, you could begin to deal with this all over again with something different. So the option of attempting to do something that stops it versus not doing anything at all and letting it run its course. I just can't see the letting it run its course option because so many more, you're talking about ethnic genocide for Black folk, potentially.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You don't do anything and that takes us out, potentially.
Yeah. Okay.
Also, we are searching for truth, which means that the power of the universe is with us in our search. And that power is the power that's greater than any power in this earth. I see it differently than I did in the beginning. And what made me see it differently was that reminder of Moses being in the wilderness and they came upon water and it was poison. And he was told to put his staff in it and sweeten the water, which means that it was no longer poisonous. At some point, that's going to happen with us. Regardless of what the intended results are, we have the power to change it. The testing on the African, as Ron stated, the Italians desire, is nothing different. However, testing on the African does not necessarily mean that is going to be effective for Europeans either, because of the genetic difference. There are genetic differences. In order for you to feel like it's okay to make a statement or request like that, you have to be a barbarian. I'm not biting my tongue anymore. I would expect nothing different than what was requested. Why? Because you have to be a culture that is inundated with the energy of a barbarian in order to do the things that has been done to people of color all over this world. And I am saying this: by embracing who we are, knowing who we are, even if we don't understand how it happens or how it functions, just to embrace that means that we have the power to control our destination. I'm sorry, our destiny. We have the power to do that. And we will no longer be submissive to a barbaric attitude that seeks to commit genocide against us as a people. Having said that, I'm saying this: the reason I will take it is because it is my firm belief that if we are seekers of truth, and we are, and if we embrace who we are, who we were created to be, nothing can happen other than we transform the vaccine into what it should be by virtue of taking it on behalf of humanity. Sounds crazy, maybe, but it's okay. I got a crazy card, but it always works. So I am no longer apprehensive about it. As a matter of fact, I am seeking the opportunity on behalf of all the people who are being left out. And to speak frankly, yes, we as a people have been hit the hardest. However, with this vaccine, the people in the trailer parks are not getting it either. So we are fighting on behalf of humanity as a whole. And by virtue of seeking that righteousness on behalf of humanity, there is nothing that we cannot transform or repurpose for the benefit of humanity, because we live by a mantra that says, what they meant for your bad, I mean for your good. We embrace that mantra. It doesn't matter what you intended to do with it. We have the power to transform that intent. Any questions about that? Any comments?
I appreciate what you and Barbara have said, because I too had some apprehensions, and I feel better about it. Mine was due to a lack of trust, but I feel better about it. I like that. I like what you just said, and I embrace that as well.
Any other comments? Okay.
Yeah, this is Audrey. Yeah, I agree with Ron. I appreciate your reminding us that we can not only embrace it, but transform it into what it really needs to be. So that kind of tampers my apprehension about it all. So just the knowing that I can transform it into what it needs to be, makes it makes it more palatable, whatever that word is. Palatable.
Anyone else? Audrey, appreciate that. Ron, appreciate that.
Pastor, this is Barbara. I think the key thing for me is when you said this is done not for our sakes, but for the sake of humanity. And so it's the larger purpose of the transformative power of this vaccine and what it will do for humanity that gives it its power. And that's what we need to stay focused on. It's not just for us, it's for what it will do for humanity and ushering in, getting us past this point so humankind can continue to pursue truth of who we really are. Because if we know who we really are, and we are not barbaric in nature, if we understand who we really are, then we're going to be the ones who people will look to do the good that's necessary for humankind.
You're absolutely right. I embrace that wholeheartedly. See, this is the thing. If we look at the scriptures, it's undeniable that we have this power. The scripture clearly shows us this. If we look at the scripture when it speaks to the I think it's our Genesis 1:25, when it speaks about being created in the image of Elohim, that speaks volumes to us. Elohim, being created in that image of God. God had no hands and feet. God is spirit. And if God is spirit and we created in the image, we have to be spirit also. And we always talk about that. This body is not who I am. I am spirit. And if we are spirit and we have the same nature as Elohim, as God, then there is no way possible for us to be disempowered or for us to be lacking in the power to do what is necessary to balance the earth. And the earth will never be balanced until righteousness prevail. Humanity must be balanced in order for righteousness to prevail. And if there are none in the earth, then we are all wandering in the wilderness if there are none who's hearing the enlightenment that is being offered from above. If there's no one hearing that enlightenment, then all of us are wandering in the wilderness, and we have been in this wilderness too long. The wilderness is not a uncharted territory in the geographical sense. The wilderness is in our minds. The wilderness is our spiritual beliefs, how we seek to embrace who we were created to be. Or do we say we believe that, but we act differently? You cannot tell me that you are a doctor, yet the only thing you are capable of doing is cutting my grass. You don't even know the terms. So if you really believe that you are who you say you are, nothing can deter you from the journey that we're on. Nothing can shake your confidence in the power that you are. It's not the power we have as much as it is the power that we are because of having been created in the image and likeness of God, our Elohim. Does that make sense to you? Any comments or questions about that?
Makes sense. Does.
So I don't think that we can have any other approach to anything, whether it be the vaccine, the election in Georgia, the choosing of a cabinet by Biden, or what's taking place in China, or the leadership in Italy desiring to experiment on Africans all over again or continuously, because that's what's happening. We were built for this. We did so much lose our way as we were beaten into submission to a pathway that only creates more chaos. Now, the pathway that we were built to travel is before us. We must travel it on behalf of humanity. If every human on this earth had its genesis in the womb of an African, then it means that every human who is not African is still connected to us. And it is imperative that we take into consideration the necessity, the obligation to embrace those who hate us the most. I think I said once before, when you are able to love the one who's done you the most harm, that is the greatest expression of love that you will ever see. It's easy to love those who are close to you and those who have not done anything to you. But the one who has abused you beyond belief, loving them changes everything. You cannot embrace being the image of Elohim and not embrace the reality that Elohim, that God is love, and you're not. If you're that image and you don't love, then you're denying who you are. Any questions about that? Okay. Any comments?
Yeah, I don't have a question.
That's funny, Shel. I was thinking about you answering. I was thinking.
I, uh, I appreciate everything that was said, and am grateful and feeling gracious at this particular moment, and in a sense of I guess it's kind of awe and just sitting into what we just declared and even talked about as it relates to the vaccine. Um, I guess to explain the righteousness that was just described and the walking into who and what we are in terms of saying, I mean, it completely changed how I looked at the vaccine, what I thought about it, to acknowledge and say that even if this was meant for harm, it doesn't even matter whether it's good or bad, but us taking it, our taking it upon ourselves to participate, to make sure that it is helpful and in the benefit of the all, and no one is harmed by it. Um, and to have the, I don't want to say faith, because that is definitely diluting it, but to walk in to that. Um, is it changes everything. You mentioned Pastor Richard's righteousness earlier today, but just the righteousness in that. Um, that is the act what we were talking about when you mentioned earlier when you said the Bible is not here or wasn't purpose for it to tell you what to do. It is more so telling you how to live um, outside of any action. It is talking about intention. It is talking about recognition of awareness of who and what we are. Um, the actions are just manifestations from those that stem from those intentions. But just thinking about the vaccine and what we declared, like I said, just now was very powerful. We always talk about acting, and that's what we just described. I'm trying to put all of this in words, but that's where I'm at, I guess, at this moment.
Okay. Another word in the scripture of encouragement is trust in who you are. When Moses says that the people were not to look down. If they look down, then they would die from the bite of the vipers. And that's saying to me that if you trust who you are, it doesn't matter whether the viper bite you, it doesn't get your attention because you're focused on a greater good. I would ask if there's anyone else who would like to speak to how they feel about the virus. I'm sorry, the vaccine itself. If there's anyone that's pro or con, it doesn't matter. Um, how you feel about it, I would like to hear it. Okay, because with us, you're not condemned for anything. Because I don't have a right to condemn. Neither no one on this phone does. I just want to know if any. Now I'm not trying to put you on the spot or force you to. And I'm so glad that we're on the phone and not in a setting where we can see each other physically. because I don't want anyone to feel pressured to say anything. And on the phones, that's very difficult to happen. So, is there anyone who would like to speak to that?
Pastor, good morning. This is Kathy. I'm not necessarily speaking to the virus, to the vaccine, but maybe I am, because like everyone else this morning, I appreciate everything that has been said. And while we were talking, it made me think of, and correct me if I'm wrong, was it not Jacob who, when he wanted to marry Rachel, he meditated on changing the spots on the cows so that he could get what he wanted, because it was something about it had to be a certain cow for him to be able to get the wife that he wanted. And through his meditation, my point is, through his meditation, he changed the trajectory of whatever was supposed to have been in favor of what he wanted it to be. And with that being said, I'm using that as an example to say that's the same power that we have, because I've been really looking at keeping the commandments of God, what that really means. And when I look at the word keep, it means to hold on to and to protect. What am I holding on to and what am I protecting? I'm protecting my identity through this word that is showing me who I am. As a result of knowing who I am, I also know the power that I am endued with, the power that I have as a result of being the I and the I am. So with all of that being said, I had already started to relinquish my fear of taking the vaccine, because if that is really what I believe and that is really who I am, then these interludes that we read about in the Bible are not interludes at all. When people did things spiritually with so much power and authority to change things for what they want. If Jacob could change that because he wanted a wife, what can we change for the good of humanity? And when I hold on to it and I see it that way, that had already started to resonate in me. Don't be afraid to take this vaccine. Do what you have to do. And you put it in perspective, like Barbara, and like you said earlier, when you look at it, you're not looking at it just for your own protection. You're left looking at it for the good of humanity. And that just changed the whole way I saw everything. And so I just wanted to speak to that and reminding us the biggest battle right now is protecting who you are, holding on. We talked about at the teachers' meeting recovering our identity. So in the recovery of my identity, I have to protect and hold on to who I am and not lose sight of the power that I have. And I think Barbara has taught on fear. I know I've taught on fear. We can't get over into fear. We have to stay focused on who we are. And I just wanted to share that this morning.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, just to add on right quick. Thank you, Kathy. That's what I was talking about, and well, I guess feeling that idea of not only doing it for ourselves, but whenever we start to do things or our compassion and intentions extend outside of ourselves to the others, to the whole, that in itself is us walking into or essentially being Jesus. And we all do it at certain times, but it's almost as expansive. And then the powers of what and who we are exercised in those particular moments, which is why this whole concept of what we've been talking about, or more so being transformed by in terms of our understanding today, is has been so impactful. That's just very that's enormous. Whenever and that's why when we're going through certain things in life, when we're able to reach out and help someone or help someone deal with the problem that they might be dealing with, that in itself helps us to go through whatever it is that we're going through. It expands us, so to speak. That's all.
Okay. And I think you're saying that the expansion of it is simply seeing that you are me and I'm you, and whatever um, I seek in righteousness is going to have an effect on us. And let me give you an example of how we do things. We were led so long down a negative pathway. When we are requesting something or desiring, and we say, "Well, they can't say nothing but negative attitude that you're seeking something with." So why is it that the term isn't, but they can't say nothing but yes? That changes everything. It sounds so simplistic, but it's so powerful. And I believe wholeheartedly that this virus environment will be purified quicker than we think, long before the projected dates. And the projected dates is early fall. I believe that the environment that's infected with this virus will be dealt with in less time than that.
Yeah.
Any comments or questions?
Just quickly. Yeah. So what
Pastor,
you?
this is Barbara.
Oh, go ahead.
Uh, I agree with you because it's all based on our intention. And our intention is to do what is right and what is beneficial for humanity. And science's intention is projecting and trying to guesstimate the best possible outcome. But our intention is much more powerful than science. And our intention is that mankind is relieved of this virus. And not just so it's relieved, but so that it remembers all that has transpired in terms of its thinking, the closeness it felt to human beings in general, and not to me, myself, and I. And that's my desire. My desire is that, that mankind understands and remembers that, yeah, I am my brother's keeper. What happens to so-and-so happens to me. And that's what helps to cleanse it and to get rid of it that much faster. Because the reason it came was because of our selfishness. And so when we decide as humanity that, and I know every single human being is not going to do it, but I mean there are so many people that have been positively impacted about this virus in terms of the way they think. That when one cleanses the mind and the thought, whatever happens in the environment follows. And so I believe what you said. It's going to be much sooner than the scientists think.
Thank you, ma'am. I believe also that the one of the reasons it was, and this going to sound crazy, one of the reasons it was safe for the Creator to send something like this into this earth is because the Creator made it impossible for those who are seeking truth to separate themselves or to teach in separate places in a physical way, but it forced all of us to come together in one space with all the energy we can muster. And that in itself is a fence. It is a protector of humanity. Knowing that suffering takes place to force eyes to be open and to force the eye open, seeking something better than what's being presented. And with that desire for something better, and we all are created in that image, then the embracing of the energy that's shared based upon what's being taught enhances the will of all, regardless of what's. We have the opportunity to travel in such a way on this journey that will make it impossible for anything to bring humanity to a place of near extinction right now. We are going to begin to feel, to see more hope than ever before. Because I'm not saying us, we never lost hope. We've tried to encourage everyone else to hold on to what the truth is. I'm saying that the hope that humanity is going to be expressive of in the next few days or weeks is the beginning of a lack of hope, but a knowing in place of hope. I know it's different. I don't hope for it. I know it. And if we are not in a place of knowing, if we are still stuck on hope, we cannot lead humanity to the space where it needs to be. We cannot lead humanity through this wilderness of doubt and fear if we ourselves are not in that space of knowing. And I do believe that that's where we are, in the space of knowing. And that in itself is enough to envelop everything in this earth with the energy, the life energy that we were created with. Kathy made a statement about protecting our identity, and she's absolutely right. When we protect our identity, it goes far beyond the protection of the identity of an African. It's the identity of humanity that we protect. I do not believe that there has been this type of energy in the earth since its inception. But there has always been the opportunity for it. But that opportunity was squandered in search of relief, government that enslaves, from a government that's more concerned with greed than it is the well-being of its citizens. So, any questions or comments? Okay, no questions, no comments. Here we are. We
Hey,
have
Pastor.
today, yes. Go ahead.
Hey, this is Rika. Just wanted to make a comment based off of what you said in the last time me and you actually talked about this. And I told you, I read a lot and just trying to learn a lot about the vaccinations and the strands and everything that's going on in general. And with you making the comment that you made about regardless of the intent, that's something that I've really been thinking about a lot lately. And I relate it to anytime we eat and we're eating outside our own household, And sometimes inside your household, depending on who's preparing the food, we always bless that food and we trust God and trust and know that He's going to provide that for nourishment and strength. And asking Him to provide that for nourishment and strength for our good, regardless of who prepared it or what you think may have happened behind the scenes at the restaurant where you went, in hopes that nobody's done anything to taint that food or any of that. That's why we bless that food. And we trust that God is going to have that enter our body for strength and nourishment and nothing other than that, regardless of the intent that might have been put into it for harm. And that's kind of how I've been looking at this thing, this vaccination and this whole coronavirus disease, and understanding and getting a better knowledge of the intent behind it and how in the end I feel like it's meant for our good.
Okay.
Wow, that's an excellent example. Yeah.
Because if we don't bless our
it's
food,
powerful.
we base it off of if we feel like this food is going to harm us, then we're not going to live long because we're not going to eat if we don't trust that God is going.
Yeah, that's powerful. I like that. Yeah.
You can carry it to the kitchen. I was speaking with Malika, and I asked her if she made a cheesecake. She said, no, I didn't do it because I didn't feel it. She said, Daddy, I seen you throw away cheesecakes because they didn't taste right. And you did not feel like you wanted to make it, but you did it because we wanted it. What am I saying? Your energy determines how things turn out. Why is it that people can use the same recipe and the food tastes different? It's because of your energy. If you don't like what you're doing or don't like the people you're preparing it for, this going to tell. And what Rika is talking about is simply, when she talks about blessing, it is infusing what's sitting before us with our energy in order to transform it into what it's supposed to be, as opposed to what it was intended for. That's it. Basic, but not so basic.
That's the word I kept trying to come up to transform. I couldn't think of it. It was coming, but I couldn't think of exactly what I was trying to say.
Okay. Thank you, dear. Anyone else?
Thank you, Rika. Yeah, I was just thinking with what Rika just said, the same thing with the placebo effect in terms of it infusing it, that thing with our energy to say this is doing my body well in terms of providing some type of nourishment. And the same thing with with oil represents in terms of praying, etc., and it being anointed is the idea of the intentions that is infused with of righteousness and that knowing that it is effective in a desirable way.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Okay. Last thing I want to say is this. We have 3 sessions today, tomorrow, Monday. And the fact that we are a unit in each of those sessions, and it's 3 of those sessions, it is opportunity to bring clarity to humanity in a divine way because of the number 3. Okay? So having said that, I look forward to seeing you guys in the morning. Have a great week, rest of your weekend.
What time?
In the morning, 11 in the morning and 6 on Monday.
Okay.
Anyone else? Hold fast to who you are. Keep your identity protected while protecting the identity of humanity. And tomorrow we will be shown something. So I'm gone. Bye-bye.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Good day,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Night,
and thank
family.
you.
Bye. Thank
Have a
you.
good day,
Take
everybody.
care, everybody.
Love y'all. Have a good day. Okay.